quilt. It moves to the beginning, takes a single stitch for me. I have the 60 weight thread on the machine, slowing my speed back down to a better number. I took a single stitch, so I'm holding my thread off to the side, and I'm going to say start. Intelliquilter is stitching a beautiful diagonal line, and it will stop in the corner. When I look at the screen, it is telling me to cut the threads and touch start, but I am not going to cut the threads and touch start. Let's get a little closer. I'm going to touch the back arrow one time. I'm going to use the restart feature. That frees me, but it also gives me a red arrow. I know the way that I sequence this, I chose the next line. So I'm going to manually move the machine over to the start 2. Put this down because I have some control. I can turn on my stitch regulator if I'm uncomfortable about doing this in manual mode. I'm going to move slowly and carefully, and as I do that, I'm watching the screen once in a while to see where the arrow is. Right now, if I started stitching, it would be going to the left. I'm going to keep going till I bump into the next start. It's right there. Turn off my stitch regulator, and I'm ready to let Intelliquilter stitch. Takes a single stitch and it travels diagonally up to the right, and stops when it gets to the seam line. Intelliquilter says, cut the threads and touch start. I'm going to touch the back arrow one time. And now I'm going to turn on my stitch regulator if I'm not comfortable doing this in non-stitch regulated mode. So I have 2 red lines on the cross hatching. And I know my crosshair represents where the needle is. The stitch regulator has been turned back on, and I'm going to travel. I'm going to touch start, and I'm going to move the needle to the next start. The next start is start 3, right there. Look up occasionally to see what's happening. Back down, and I'm almost there. Whoops, went past. Stop right there. Blue light off. Touch OK. And Intelliquilter is going to stitch the next diagonal line. Let me get a little closer so you can see. You see right there where I traveled? There's a little bit of thread buildup, but remember that if you were stitching in a ditch around a pieced block, you'd never see that. And I was in control of where those stitches landed. I like this method. We have 3 red lines. That's what we've stitched. Now I'm going to touch the back arrow one time, restart. I'm going to travel to the next start. Start 4 is right there. Look up occasionally to make sure I'm doing what the red arrow is in agreement with. I'm going to stop right there, turn off my stitch regulator, say OK. And Intelliquilter stitches the next diagonal line. It stops right on that seam line. And I keep going in this manner. Now that stitched a tiny bit outside of the seam. So I'm going to touch the back arrow, touch restart. I'm going to do a big swoop. Actually, it's pretty okay. Looked like it was bad, but it's not. But should I decide I need to take it out, I do have control. I'm going to leave my tails long because I'm going to be burying them. Because I'm going up to number 7. There it is. I have my crosshair right in that. This could not be any better. Move the needle to the restart location and touch OK. When I do that, it takes a single stitch. That allows me to bring up my bobbin. I'm going to hold it gently and tell it to stitch. It beeps telling me that it finished that command, and I think you probably know what I'm going to do next. I'm going to back arrow, restart. I'm going to travel up to number 8, which is right there. So turn on my stitch regulator, get it lined up where I want it, and just travel up. And the more I do this, the more comfortable I like it, and I like that it's sequential. My red arrow is at start 8. I'm going to turn off my stitch regulator, touch OK, takes a single stitch, and away it goes. I'm going to continue this way until I have all the diagonals completed. Big swoop because I need to bring up my bobbin. Take a single stitch, bobbin pops right up. I'm going to leave the tail long enough to tie and bury. And then I'm going to touch start, and that will help us begin the diagonals going the other direction. It's coming from the upper left, takes a single stitch. I swipe under. If I'd have known it was that close, I certainly would not have cut my thread there. Should have checked my numbers. All right, so this is out of the way. Everything's looking nice and clean. Start. It's coming down to begin. Closes up very nicely. Single stitch. I'm going to hit the back arrow. Restart. So I just finished 12, so I need to look for 13, and I'm going to travel up just like I've been doing. Be nice and careful. Now I didn't like that corner as well as I have. It happens I'm off to the side, so let that be a lesson to you. Stay right in front of the needle. I got out of the way for the camera. Red arrow. Telling me I'm good. Away we go. Back arrow. I really like this. Now I also know that you could sequence this so that one row goes out, travels, comes back. There are so many ways you could sequence this, but I find this to be the most pleasing. Perfect. Back arrow. This time I'm not going to use the stitch regulator. When you've spent time with your machine, you can do this without turning the stitch regulator on each time. That does speed up the process quite a bit. But if you're not comfortable turning off, doing this without your stitch regulator, just turn it on. I'm going to take one stitch to close up that little part. I'm going to touch restart, and I'm coming down to 21. Pause right there. Got it. Okay. That's spot on. Back arrow, restart, travel to the left, look up, not quite there yet. 22, here I come. There it is, and go. I'm finished. I'm going to do a couple stitches. I won't even have to do a tie and bury on that, because when I use manual mode, I can put in more stitches so that I have no tie-offs. So I hope you found this helpful. It's a great way to do a crosshatch. There are many ways to do everything. I think exploring with Intelliquilter and finding out what works for you is the most important part, and you have the freedom to do it. So here we are. It's finished stitching out this crosshatch. So this is Sheridan Carter from Sheridan Kay Quilting at the APQS store in Hendersonville, North Carolina, where we carry APQS long arm machines and Intelliquilter so that you can add robotics and you can really be this creative and comfortable. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Bye-bye for now. If you enjoyed my tutorial today, be sure to give this YouTube video a thumbs up